Hello everybody, thank you for joining me. This class is going to be about awakening your core. And when we think about the core, we often think about these like muscles here to get them stronger and crunches and stuff like that. But the core is basically your relationship between your spine and your pelvis and all these muscles that connect from the front to the back and the way that those function together basically. So it can be kind of complicated sometimes, or we can be working with kind of deep muscles that you're not really sure how they're supposed to feel because they're not on the superficial layers. And think about the core as like if you're cooking onions and you just put them on high heat and blast them and you're like, sweet, they're cooked. That's kind of, we want to go with a slow, low heat caramelization to bring out all the flavors. So none of this is going to be high intensity. It's just going to be a way to slowly go in and feel all the stuff that's happening. And sometimes we'll be barely doing any movement at all, but it'll feel really intense. And that's what we want to find, like a way to utilize and recruit these muscles so that we can function better. So we will start onto our back, and the only thing that's actually needed is maybe a block, but if you don't have something, a really firm pillow, or maybe like a container, like a Tupperware container or something could work. We're pretty much only going to use it to squeeze with our thighs, so something roughly like that. You can find all sorts of interesting equipment around your house if you're creative. So start onto your back. And just place one hand onto your heart, one hand onto your belly. Drop your shoulders, close your eyes, and you can take your feet wider and knock your knees in. And this is just a nice way to settle into the body. Start the rhythm of your breath and take your intention inwards. So it's like you're going on a little journey inside your body and feeling out all the different flavors, if you will. So as you lie here, take a couple of minutes to take a few breaths. It's nice and smooth. You want to feel the belly rise with the inhale and fall away from the hand with the exhale. Soften the face, the teeth, the eyebrows, the jaw. And just put your attention in the rise and fall of the belly. So you've carved out this chunk of time to be on your mat here. And I encourage you to, even though if you're doing this at home, most likely, there's so many distractions around, and you might get text messages, or the laundry machine beeps, or your kids are yelling at you, whatever. Just try to let all of that go and actually commit to this practice, because it is worth going from start to finish. Two more breaths. And if you've breathed slowly enough, you might feel that there's a calmness upon your nervous system. If only for a brief moment, it's worth practicing that. So from here you can open your eyes, hug your knees in towards your chest, and you can sway a little bit from side to side, just feeling out the ridge of the sacrum and the muscles of the upper pelvis here, or the bones, I should say. And then just hug your right knee in, straighten your left leg out, and pull the knee in. Hover the left foot above the floor. Take a breath in. And then as you exhale, bring your knee or maybe even your forehead, which is a little bit harder, to your nose. Not your forehead to your nose, your knee to your forehead, or your knee to your nose. And then inhale it back. Change sides, squeeze the left leg in. Hover the right foot. Really reach up through the heel, take a breath in, and then knee to nose. Inhale. So just move, we're just doing some basic kind of crunches, and you'll feel that into your abdominal region there. If you want to modify, you can always keep one foot on the floor instead of extending it out. And moving with the rhythm of your breath that you created onto the floor. You might be feeling some heat already. Let's go one more time. And then set the feet down, lift the hips up so you can stretch out the belly. Not your deepest back bend, just a lifting, lengthening of the belly here. Maybe a swivel of your hips from side to side. Nice. And then take your knees, your hands behind your knees, start to rock and roll upwards here. Just until you grab hold of your block here. We're going to ignite some of these really deep muscles, and starting with the pelvic floor. And I like to initiate this movement. We'll actually leave the block off to the side. We'll use it in a moment. Come back down. It's easiest to feel lying down rather than sitting up. So this definition is going to be a little bit crude. I apologize if you don't like that, but it's the best way to explain it. One way of explaining it is think about if you're trying to hold in the sensation of going poo and pee at the same time. So you have this lift of your internal pelvic floor upwards here. A better way of describing it, which my sister-in-law told me, and only women can relate to this, is imagine that you have a tampon in and somebody's trying to pull it out, but you're trying to keep it up in there. And you can feel that is your pelvic floor. If you haven't really worked with it before, you might notice it. You'll contract it and then you'll immediately let it go. So doing these types of exercises is really beneficial for making sure that you don't accidentally pee your pants as you get older. Or like if you cough and you pee, if you don't want to do any of that, then just work on these sensations. You can add the block with this, which will get also into the inner thighs here. So you squeeze the block with the inner thighs. Think about someone pulling out that imaginary tampon, unless you actually have one in. And then squeeze the block and try to lift the pelvic floor at the same time. So you're doing not a hell of a lot. You're lying down, but there's a lot going on and it's probably difficult. And then you can keep the block, but just relax the grip there. Take a breath in. I like to breathe in and relax, and then on the exhale, do the squeeze and the lift. So you're not moving your pelvis or anything like that. You're lifting the muscle, the bathroom muscles, squeezing those inner thighs. And if this is really difficult, good. Go a couple of more times and work on this as best as you can, to the best of your ability. Sometimes when you do something really difficult, it's easy to give up. You're like, nah, too hard. But if it's just a moment at a time, that is the building blocks to getting better at something. So all we're doing is inhaling, releasing, exhaling, lifting, squeezing. If that is totally fine for you, you can try that with the feet off of the floor. So there's a hovering of the feet. You take a normal inhale, and then an exhale, squeeze and lift. Take an inhale, Exhale, squeeze and lift. 2 more times. Make sure your low back is plugged down as well, rather than the low back lifting up off of the floor. Curve it back down. Go ahead and sit onto the hands, reach the feet up into the air, and squeeze the block here. If you have kind of tight hamstrings, your knees might be bent, which is cool too, but you're still squeezing the block. Try to get your feet above your hips rather than like way back here. Try to get them above. So if your knees are bent, you'll just bring them closer in. Squeeze the block, relax the block. You move the block off to the side, pretend it's still there. You're sitting onto your hands, and this just helps to keep the low back down onto the mat there. And you'll start to lower your feet down towards the floor. Low back is pressing down into the floor. You're imagining that you still got this pelvic floor lift, the block squeeze, pretend it's still there. And then when you're really quivering and shaking, draw your knees back in towards the chest, extend them straight up, and then slowly lower them. So you see that we're not really getting our heart rate going, we're not really doing a lot here, but there's so much engagement involved. And these types of movements really help with everything else that you do. Nice. So after a couple of rounds of starting with your feet lifted and lowered, we'll do the opposite. So this time we'll stretch the legs out, keep the low back down, try to lift the pelvic floor, then reach the legs up. The slower you move, the better. Bend your knees, draw them out, and this will work a lot of the lower region there. So the more you get your feet kind of lower like that and slowly move it up, that is recruiting all this low belly stuff up here. Let's go 2 more times. So if you need to move faster because you're quivering too much, go for it. If you're cool to stay in the quiver and really work through it, I encourage you to go even slower. Nice. And then let's rock and roll out of that. Rock and roll onto the back a couple of times. Come up into a tabletop position. And in this tabletop position, take a real wiggly, snake-like kind of random movement where you're just feeling out your spine, moving in every direction you possibly can, and including the shoulders, the hips, the head, everything into this. Still breathing. So when you bring your shoulders over your wrists like this, you want to make sure that this index finger knuckle is grounded down. It often wants to lift up when we roll onto the outer edges of the wrist, and that can cause pain there. So push down into the inner hands. Now, come into a neutral tabletop position. So you're not sagging into your belly at all or rounding too much into the back. You're doing both of those at once. And then hover your knees up off of the floor. Keep pushing into the inner hands, super straight into the arms, almost like you're trying to separate the shoulder blades away from each other on the back. So you're pushing, hovering the knees, and you'll feel that straight away into the core there. You can take your left foot off, straighten it out. The right knee is hovering. Set it back down, take the right leg out, left knee is hovering, you're still pushing the floor away. Lower it down. So either lower the knees down and take a little rest, or go straight back into side to side here. One more time. Try not to lift the knees up too much. They're hovering. Your shoulders are over the wrists and you're pushing your hands through the floor, or imagining you are. Nice. Give your wrists a little bit of a shake here. And we're going to come into a chaturanga push-up. So normal push-ups often have the arms like out like that as we push them out. Chaturanga is the elbows are right back. And often I see it in the full chaturanga where as you load down, what happens is the pelvis can drop and it comes into this kind of strange push-up. So we'll keep the knees down for this. Come into a tabletop position, put all your weight forward so you'll feel a lot into the wrist crease as well, which is cool. We might just move back and forwards so you can stretch more and more into the wrists. Push into the inner hands. And as you lean forwards here like that, you want to find that there's a tuck sensation in the tailbone rather than the butt sticking up. So lean forward, tuck the tailbone a lot, and then just tiny bend your elbows, squeeze them in towards the rib cage, lean even farther forward, tuck the tailbone, and come a little bit farther down. Almost like you're halfway coming down to the floor. Shoulders might want to dump, keep them lifted, and push back up. A lot of triceps here, mainly with the knees down, but this creates a lot of core control as well. So lean forward, lower, elbows hug in, chest stays lifted, tailbone is tucked a lot. Push back up. If you want to intensify and you feel like your form is good, form is always first before progressing any further. Then you can try it with both feet, both knees up off. There's a lean forward, there's a tuck, there's a core engagement, there's a half lower. You can always drop the knees and push back up as well. Come into a brief child's pose there. I'm going to show you one more thing with that chaturanga that's really cool, is have it so that you have a block right here. And your hands will come forward, tuck the tailbone, shift the shoulders super far forward. As you bend, hug the elbows in, and you're just kind of lowering your chest onto that block. So that's about how low you should go. You don't want your shoulders like dumping, and you want your elbows right over the wrists rather than way back here. You want to go super far forward. It feels really awkward and it's intense on the forearms and a lot of work on the triceps, but if you can nail that, that will transform many other parts of your yoga practice if you choose to do so. We're going to warm up the body a little bit more with some sun salutations. So come to the top of the mat, stand up. Do the first one pretty modified and then make it progressively harder each time. If something is too difficult, don't do that. Do the modification one first until it feels like you've got it down pat to progress. Because you don't ever want to build bad habits in your body. So starting relatively at the top of the mat, feel your feet grounding down. Lift up really tall. Take an inhale, sweep the arms up. You can look up if it's okay for the neck. And then forward fold. I like to place my belly onto my thighs, rib cage onto the thighs. Look inwards. Take a half lift. And then step back, plank pose. So here you can lower the knees down, shift forward, lower into that little push-up. This time we'll come all the way down though. Couple of rounds of cobra with the hands hovering. So you're not pushing into this back bend. You're coming up a little bit, but you're hovering the hands. Your heels can touch. Your butt is turned on, and your back core is working here. So lift up, look down, lower down. Try that 2 more times. Sometimes it's nice to wiggle the hips from side to side. Inhale, come up into a cobra. Squeeze the shoulders in, lower down. 1 more. Now just put the feet down, put the hands down, push into your hands and come up into a bigger back bend here. Elbows still drawing inwards, shoulders drop, chest is lifted. Take a breath. Lower down, push right up into tabletop position, and then downward facing dog. Take a couple of breaths in your downward facing dog and pedal out through the legs. Push your hands down and forward, drop your head. We often habitually hold our head up like this, but drop it. So there's nothing going on in your neck and shoulders. You're just working through the strength of your arms and going through the backs of the legs. Now, if your hamstrings are really tight, I encourage you to keep your heels lifted and bend your knees so you can find length in the entire torso. That's more important than trying to get your heels down or anything like that. So that's nice to get the lift of the hips and the push of the hands down and forward, the drop of the head. For this one, we're going to walk our hands back, come into a forward fold at the back of the mat, dangle, grab the elbows, and then walk your hands forward. And this time, in your downward facing dog, you'll walk your feet forward. Try to push into those inner hands as you come forward. Dangle. Take a half lift. Lower. All the way up. Breathe in. And then hands to heart center. So we'll do that 2 more times. And if you need to take those modifications with your knees down, etc. I'll show you the more amplified version. Reach up, take a big breath in. You can look up, little back bend, and then forward fold. Bend the knees to come forward. Drop your head, look in, halfway lift, breathe in, and then step back, plank pose. So your knees are off the mat, your inner hands grounded. Try to push your hands through the mat, spread the shoulder blades, shine the chest forward, tuck the tailbone. There's a lot going on in a plank pose here. We're just going to hold this for a moment. You can always lower the knees anytime you like. Often what I see in plank is a kind of down dog plank shape or a sort of up dog plank shape. But we want to find this. Imagine you've got like an ice cream scoop that's coming and scooping out into the core. You want to have this scoop action here. And it's kind of like you're peering over the edge of the mat, like you're looking over the edge of the cliff there. Take a breath in, super strong legs, and then you can lower your knees or lower all the way down. Untuck your toes, come up, cobra position. If you'd like to change into up dog, I like to slide the hands back a little bit. Press the tops of the feet down, lift the knees. Common tendency is the shoulders go forward. Try to draw them back and push the floor away. Lift the crown of the head. And then downward facing dog. So the core is involved in the entire process of the sun salutation. You want to move from your center, not just from the external limbs. So everything is powered in the center. You're still in your downward facing dog. Look forward, lift up high onto your tippy toes, bend your knees, And you can step forward or you can hop to the top of the mat. Forward fold, look in. Take a half lift. Breathe out. All the way up. Inhale. Hands to heart center. Exhale. Soft shoulders. Breathe in, lift tall. Forward fold, release. Take a halfway lift. And then step back, plank pose. Shift a little bit forward into your plank. Engage into your quads, tuck your tailbone. Take one more inhale. Halfway lower. And then all the way lower. This time locust pose. Take your arms back. Imagine you're trying to hold an imaginary ball between your hands and you're trying to squeeze it. Lift up. And then bring your hands back, either up into tabletop position or straight back into downward facing dog. And breathe. So in your downward facing dog, come up high onto your tippy toes, and then swivel both heels towards the right, bend into both knees, and push a lot through your left hand. More so than your right hand. Then come back, swivel up through center to the other side, bend into your knees, push a lot through the right hand. Come back to center, high up onto your tippy toes, look forward, bend your knees, take a breath in, and as you exhale, you'll step or you'll hop to the top, forward fold. Find a half lift, breathe out. All the way up. Hands to heart center. We'll take one more like that and add on some more variations. Breathe in, forward fold. Halfway lift. Step back, plank pose. Shift forward, lower all the way down. Locust pose as you inhale, arms go back, chest lifts, downward facing dog. In your downward facing dog, reach the right leg up, look forward, and then try to bring your right knee to your upper right arm. So shift forward, try to tap it there. Set the foot down, take the left leg up, breathe in. Then bring it forward to the upper left arm. So the more you can get it high and up into the armpits, really have to engage the back quad. That will be way more effective than sinking the hips down and disengaging there. So the key is really high, rounded back, and that will give you the leverage to step your foot forward. So try that a couple of times. If you want to make it easier, you do from down dog into that position. If you want to make it harder, you stay in plank and you just tap each side. So your shoulders are right over the wrist and they don't move. You're really trying to lift up, lean forward, and even engage the back leg a lot. It's really hard to talk. And you can pick up the pace if you want. I never really like doing that because I feel like it's less engaged when you go super fast. Let's go back into downward facing dog. Pick up the right leg again, and this time you're going to step the right foot between the hands. So that hugging, that vacuuming of the thigh up to the chest as you roll forward will give you that clearance to step forward. That is a skill that takes a lot of time to learn. Often when you step forward, it might be here, and then you bring it forward there. Try it one more time. Right leg up, thigh to rib cage, heel to butt, round, shift, push, step. Nice. Bring your hands up to your hips. crescent position here. So just stay here for a moment. Feel the sensation of lifting the frontal hip points up. So that probably means that the back knee will bend here. And then just start to sink a couple of little pulses here. Your pelvis is in a neutral position. Shoulders are back. And from crescent, we'll come up into stork. Back into crescent. Inhale. And then exhale. And what I want you to feel, I know there's a lot of muscles in the ankles and the butt and everything giving you this lift, but try to keep the awareness in this trunk part of the body, and it's coming from your center as you lift up and go back. You can bend the knee. Lift up, your belly is involved here. Go back. Let's bring our hands to the floor, step back into downward facing dog. Change sides, left leg up. And we'll try it a couple of times. So bend the top knee, thigh to the rib cage, super engage into the right quad. Shift the shoulders forward as you push your hands through the floor. Round the upper back a lot, and then step the foot forward as best as you can. We'll try that again. Left leg lifts. It's a very engaged process here. Thigh up into the rib cage, right up into the chest, heel to butt, shift forward. A lot of arm strength, back quad strength. Step forward. Come up, crescent position. And we'll just lower, lift the back knee. Keep your awareness in the trunk, in the shape of the pelvis. The weight is into the front heel, and then we'll add on by bringing knee into chest. Stepping it back. Inhale to come up. Using your left butt muscle to give you that lift as well, but mainly focusing on this chunk of the core here. Inhale up, whoop, wobble. And then back into your downward facing dog. We're going to come up high onto the tippy toes. Bend the knees, look forward, step or hop to the top. Come down onto your butt. Take a breather, take a drink if you need to. And then finding boat pose here. Right onto your sit bones, those bony points under your butt there. Lift up super tall, shoulders draw back, lower back. Usually wants to do this when we sit here. But really draw it in and up so that our weight is moving forward on the sit bones rather than back here. Lift up nice and tall. You can stay here, you can lift the feet off of the floor, maybe hands to the floor, hovering, whatever you choose. But still trying to bring your chest forward, your thighs inwards. And just pause here. And slowly lower down onto the low back. And here we'll take the arms out and cross each side. Tap, tap, opposite elbow, opposite knee. These yogic bicycles. You don't want to pull your head and sort of crunch it, but your hands are like kind of floating behind your head. Try to keep both shoulders off of the mat if you can. That'll amplify it rather than kind of being way back here. If you can get up really high, that'll make it a lot more effective into these side muscles. Lower down when you've had enough. Place your feet to the floor. Take a brief bridge pose, just to stretch it all out here. have a seat back down. Rock all the way back up. Cross the shins on top of the other shin. And then we'll come into a forearm plank. So just like a regular plank, except onto the forearms here. It depends what you're doing it for, but sometimes it's nice to have the hands together, especially when we're shifting over. So we might do that when we come into a dolphin position, just to see how that feels. But we'll start off with hands relatively, shoulder distance apart. They always want to flare out, so bring them in. I like to bring them in more than they need to be, because when I put weight on them, they usually start moving out that way. So this forearm plank, you can lower your knees, of course, and stay in this position. Same thing as plank. So the tailbone is tucked, your belly is on, and your shoulders are over the elbows here. And if you want to intensify, you can lift the knees up. You'll really notice that you have to engage a lot into the quads. Tuck the tailbone and push through the backs of the shoulder blades there as you push into the floor. I don't know why it's keep moving all the time. So into your forearm plank. And then to get into the side core muscles, the obliques, I really like doing this. Swivel the heels to one side, back through center to the other side. So nothing is really moving. The shoulders, everything is staying in the same position. You're just swiveling side to side here. You can also do this movement in plank too. Swiveling side to side. It really targets into these oblique muscles. Anytime you need a break, it's way too intense, you take child's pose and just breathe. I prefer to, rather than just like crank out a bunch of stuff and sort of lose form and just, go gung-ho with it, actually take a break and space it out throughout the day. So you can do like one set now, one set like in 3 hours, and if you just randomly do stuff all day long, I know that not everybody has the discipline for that, but if you use it as like a way to play, rather than do it all in one session, it really, really makes a huge difference, I think. So, if you're still into it, that's great. If you've come out, that's cool too. We'll lower the knees down, bring the hands together, cross the fingers and just take the pinkies up. Dig down into the elbows. So it's like you're in a forearm plank here, and then you're going to walk your feet up, coming into a downward dog shape. Push your head through your arms. You can bend your knees here and push into the elbows. This is a great shoulder opener and strengthener at the same time. And I like this variation with the hands together as opposed to this variation, because I feel like you can get more range in your shoulder when your arms are together than flat. But that's up for you to decide in your body. So draw inwards towards the belly, like you're sucking the navel up in towards itself. Nice. From here, we'll drop the knees, come into a child's pose. And then slowly roll up. So side plank is something I absolutely love practicing. I'll take you through the modifications all the way up. A lot of this stuff is quite intense on the wrists. When you're on your hands, you're shifting forward. You're into a side plank. If your arms are not used to that, take breaks, roll them out as much as you need to. Roll them around, etc. That will help the mobility of it. So if it's too intense, definitely back off. It's something that you build up to. So from tabletop position, Take your left leg out, tuck the toes behind you, and then pivot your right foot over to the right side and spin your left heel down, left arm up. So this is kind of a side plank variation here. The bottom arm, you want the fingers to splay out a little bit and your bicep to roll forward. And that will help the shoulder blade to draw back down, and that will lift the chest from underneath, rather than kind of putting all the weight down and hovering here like that. If you can get that lift from underneath there, roll it open, push your hand down and forward. That'll give you a lot of stability in the shoulder. For now, we'll take this more into the side core. So take your left leg up, right arm over. So super length in the side body. Take an inhale here, and then knee to elbow. Open it out, knee to elbow. Open it out, knee to elbow. Watch what the bottom shoulder is doing as you do that. Has it kind of dumped inwards? Can you re-engage? You're lifting from the back side of the body. Nice. Set the foot down, come all the way up onto that right knee. Slide the left hand down the left leg, reach the right arm up, breathe in, and then stretch out through that right side body. You can look upwards or straight or down. Nice deep stretch in the side body. Come all the way back up. Reset the arm, so fingers splayed out, shoulders rolling open. You can stay, or if you want to take the full variation, the feet are stacked on top of each other. Another way to modify is to put the top foot on the floor in front of you as well. And this will develop all this sensation, the bottom shoulder, the core, tuck the tailbone, push the floor away, lift the top arm up. Breathe in, and then back into tabletop position. And we'll try the other side. I'm going to just face this way so that you can see me rather than my back side. And so tabletop position this time, extend through the right leg, tuck the toes under. I like to push the hands down and forward and the heel back. You get a little stretch in the calf. You can even hover the bottom knee. Kickstand the left foot over to the side, spin the right heel down, open right arm. Pause. Sometimes we're like, yep, know where we're going, I'm gonna go do it. But set up in your foundation, press your hand down, roll the bicep muscle out. Think about the shoulder blade drawing down and inward to give you that lift. So rather than that shoulder poking in and hanging out, roll it open, push down and forward. Keep that. Make sure your bottom knee is comfortable if you need to move it anywhere. Right leg up, right arm over, breathe in, find length, and then exhale, knee to elbow, crunch it in. The inhales find length, exhales go in. You probably might feel that in that left butt as well. Nice. Put the foot down, come all the way up, slide the right hand down the leg, lift the left arm. Move over to the side. Keep sliding down till you're at your full depth. So you're not really using any muscle here, you're just lengthening. And then come all the way back. Choose the variations with the side plank. So fingers splay open, push the hand down, stack the feet on top of each other, or put the right foot forward and down for some support. Otherwise, just hold it here. Bottom shoulders rolling open. From the back of the heart, you're lifting up. Tailbone's tucked. Back of the neck is long. You can look up if you'd like. All of your torso and everything is what's giving you this control. From here, there's so many different options of moving. Hand down, knees down. Come to a seat and just sit here like so. If you have tight hamstrings, your knees can be bent. So I'd rather you sit upright with your knees bent than sit with your legs straight and lean back. We will lean back for this. Excuse me. But yeah, sit up super straight for now. Take your arms up towards the ceiling. Breathe in, so you're creating the letter L shape. And then reach your arms forward. At the same time, lower. Your heels will slide. Lower your low back down onto the mat. Lower, lower, lower. You're using your low tummy. When you get there, arms come all the way overhead. Take a breath in. Heels stay super grounded. And then come back the same way. I like to call this the Frankenstein lift and lowers. So come forward, all the way up. Breathe in. You can add in a forward fold as well. Go ahead, roll down. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, roll down. So one at a time. It is kind of nice to allow your heels to slide. Low back stays connected there. Once you breathe in, you can lift your low back up, take a big stretch in the front body, and then as you breathe out, your low back comes back down. Heels are anchored into the floor like they're glued, and then you come back up. Lift up super tall, you're right onto your sit bones, and then you can forward fold. Your head will slowly drop last. Look in. Inhale, come back up. Exhale. Reach over, breathe in. Push, lift, back up. Reach up, forward fold. This time we'll come all the way onto our back. Lower. Arms up. Stay here. Except if you need to straighten your mat. Take the arms out to the side, knees stacked right over the hips here, like you're sitting into a chair on the floor. Palms are facing down so you can push your hands into the floor. Resist the urge to draw the knees in too close. Keep them right over, so you'll feel that you need to use your core awareness here. Think about your pelvic floor muscles that we engaged. See if you can recruit those again, just for a brief moment to see if you still have the ability to do it. Breathe in, and you'll take the knees over to the side. So this is where I like to use my hands, my arms pushing into the floor to give that lift. Knees back to center, to the other side. Back to center. Now imagine you have that block stuck in between your thighs here. If you want to make it harder, it gets a lot trickier to keep the legs straight as you do so. Bring it back up to center. Keep your legs into the air. Interlace your hands around the right hamstring. And then you can either set the left foot onto the floor, pull the right leg in, or you can straighten the leg out here. So if your leg is quite far away, you might be here. If you're able to pull it in, you can even put your hands on the calf muscle and then pull it in. Just a nice stretch out, sway from side to side. Make like a little gun with your right arms and then lift up and take it over to the outside of your right leg. Try to lift both shoulders. You're scissoring your legs apart. There's a lot of engagement here as well. Bring it back to center. Swap legs. Interlace your hands behind the left. Lower the right. Keep your low back down. So either foot is onto the floor. Hands above the hamstring or calf muscle, depending on where you are with your flexibility. Just take a moment here. Make a gun shape with your hands. Breathe in. And then as you exhale, you'll lift, try to lift both shoulders off and then scissor your legs apart from each other. Let's take both legs up. Keep the gun shape. We'll go one time on each side. Let's go one more time on each side. Why not? And then hug your knees back into your chest. You can take a happy baby pose. You can take a little bit of a bridge pose here, just to stretch out the belly. And you can cross one leg over top of the other. Let's take right knee over top of left. Shift hips to the right. Drop knees to the left. And the breath in and out of the belly is just soft now. Take it to the other side. Lift back up. Left knee over top of right, shift hips to the left, drop knees to the right. Back up through center and Shavasana. Relax, do nothing, just breathe. Take a scan of your body with your awareness and feel your entire body on the floor, on the four corners of your mat. You can start to move your hands and your feet. Take your knees into your chest. Little sway from side to side until you roll over onto one side. Come up to a seat. Sit up really, really tall. Lift up through the crown of the head. Take your hands together. Thank you so much for practicing with me. I hope you made it through the whole video, even if you had to pause it and stop and modify, but the work is very satisfying. And I hope you agree. Namaste.